Episode 3 of The Voice of Healthcare is all about medical adherence. We interview special guest Dr. Saji Salam about Your MedInfo, his new company, his background, the Echo Show, and much more. Enjoy. Hi, and welcome to episode 3 of The Voice of Healthcare, the podcast designed to examine all aspects of how voice is interacting with the healthcare sector. My co-host is Dr. Matt Cebulski, principal of Ionia. Matt, say hello.
Hi, everyone. Good to join you again, Brad.
Absolutely, Matt. And I'm Bradley Metrock. I'm CEO of a company called Score Publishing based here in Nashville. Our guest here today is Dr. Saji Salam. Dr. Salam, say hello.
Hey, Brad and Matt. Great to be on your show.
Thank you for setting the time aside, Saji, and we greatly appreciate that. So rather than me explain all the different things you've done, I'm just going to give you the floor. Share with us some of your background, leading all the way up to what it is you're doing right now in the healthcare space.
Well, absolutely. I'm Dr. Saji Salam. I'm a physician by training. And as my friends say, a physician gone bad or crazy because I've been doing too many things. So even during med school days, I was the leader of the students union and then later the junior doctors union. And incidentally, we were put in jail by the communist government because we were campaigning for some public health issues. So that was one side of what was going on. And then I was also involved in the visual media. We brought out some 3-4 episodes of news capsule in Kerala, which is the place I lived in India during my med school days. So, with all those strange things going on as a physician, I moved on to take a degree in business administration. And so I went off to UK to do my MBA in healthcare. And since then, I've been working with firms like Accenture and Deloitte, consulting for health insurance companies, health providers, and specialty pharma companies on a variety of healthcare strategy, management consulting, and technology areas. So this is what I've been doing for over 15, 16 years now. And I've done this in Asia, Europe, and North America. And at a certain point last year, I decided to move into starting up my own venture, which has various components of artificial intelligence in healthcare. And we started off with the first slice of that using voice technologies or Alexa for a special problem in healthcare, which is around medication.
So the name of your company is Your MedInfo. What stage of it are you at? Do you have a working prototype on Alexa, or are you just now getting it going? Where are you at in terms of Your MedInfo development?
Oh, sure. So, let me just talk a little bit about Your MedInfo. And, Your MedInfo is a company that is focused to address a growing challenge of non-adherence to prescribed medication, which is costing the U.S. healthcare industry about $300 billion in direct and indirect cost. And if you look at a country like Canada, it is costing Canada about $12 billion. So this is, if you look at the U.S., this is about 10% of our healthcare budget that is going waste because people are not adhering to the prescribed medication. And sorry.
No, I apologize for interrupting you. So let's say that I am I'm a senior citizen and I've got some medicine that I need to be taking, or if I'm a cancer patient, I've got medicine I need to be taking. How does your software determine that I'm not taking it and try to get me to follow instructions more often?
Right. So, you brought up a good point about, patients not, taking medication, be it cancer patients or other patients. But according to the stats that we have, 50% of patients with chronic disease are non-adherent to medication. And if you look at those patients with chronic diseases, you're looking at about 160 million in the U.S. by 2020. And for Canada, we have a figure of about 10 million by 2036. So that's a large number of patients who are living with chronic disease, and 50% of them are non-adherent to medication. So before we go to the solution itself, I wanted to talk a little bit about why this is happening and what we could do to fix it. And then we talk a little bit about the role that our application will play. According to the studies done, the causes for non-adherence are a couple of them. One is behavioral issues such as procrastination or forgetfulness. The other is you have multiple medications, so keeping track of all that, and then there are complicated dosing schedules. It makes it tricky for patients to keep up with all that. The other big issues around non-adherence is one related to picking up from the pharmacy. You might not have somebody to go pick it up. You might not be mobile yourself. So that is one issue. And then, of course, high deductibles and high copays in patients with health insurance. So these are some of the major causes that lead to non-adherence when it comes to prescribed medications.
Hey, Saji, real quick.
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but where are you getting these figures from? I'm curious.
Oh, the one which I just talked about, these numbers, this is a white paper from Express Script, which is published out there. I can send you the link to those papers after the call, if that works.
Sure, and we'll put that into the show notes.
Sure, yeah, that'd be helpful.
And I've got a question for you, too.
Sure.
And this is just a dumb question. I'm fine to be the person to ask it. What does non-adherence mean? Does that mean that, I decided I'm no longer taking anything that those silly doctors asked me to do, or it means that I just didn't listen clearly enough and I think I'm following instructions, but I'm actually not?
Mm-hmm. It is a combination of, many of these. In some cases, patients are like, hey, they just forgot, and they have too many medications, so they're, struggling to cope with all that. And there may be some cases where patients experiment. They are like, hey, I've been taking this medication for this long. Let me take it for a week and see what happens. So those situations are there. And then there are some other genuine situations where they are traveling or some other situations which are out of their control. But it could be a variety of these reasons that lead to non-adherence with medications prescribed. Okay, great. So now that we talked about some of the numbers around it, let's look at what the application can do, because we address some of the issues around this. So one issue around around non-adherence is the patient education component. So let's say a patient goes to the pharmacy, picks up a medication, or in some cases, and if we have a senior patient or a bedridden patient, it is somebody at home or the caregiver who goes and picks up the medication. The pharmacist talks to the person, that person comes and talks to the patient. We have a lost in translation situation, right? So here is where Alexa and Echo Dot and our skill can come handy. So we are able to capture information, let's say, about drugs like simple as ibuprofen, or the specialty pharmaceutical drugs like Harvoni on Alexa. So we are able to have information stored in Alexa related to medication information, drug interactions, side effects, dosage, frequency, how to take the medication, and things like that. And this becomes important in medications like simple medications like ibuprofen, but it becomes all the more important in medications like a Harvoni. A Harvoni pill costs you $1,000, right? So you want to make sure.
And what does that do?
That is a treatment for hepatitis C.
Okay.
Right, but this is a whole new class of drugs called specialty pharma, which is these are very high-priced drugs. And they are now about 1/3 of our pharma spend. Every year, the U.S. spends about $450 billion in pharmaceuticals, and of that, $150 billion is spent on these specialty pharma or high-priced drugs, which have complex dosing schedules, Some have issues in terms of how they are constituted and all that. So for such drugs and in drugs in general, the patient may listen to the instructions once, and then that's it. So
How would they listen to the instructions? From person to person or from your skill?
Right. The current situation is they listen to the pharmacist or the doctor who says that, hey, take this pill. This is how you should take it. But now on the skill, you can say, hey, Alexa, I want to know more about this drug. Okay. So that is where Alexa then goes about saying that this is the drug. These are the things you need to know about. And again, Alexa prompts them and asks, hey, is there a specific area you want to hear more about? Like, do you want to hear more about drug interactions or how to take the medication? So then the patient can go back and say, hey, yeah, I want to know more about how to take the patient medication or how I take the, what about the side effects of that drug? So this is very, general information about the drug. But to your question, about how does Alexa, about Alexa knowing more about the drug, we can provide more personalized patient education. So based on the patient's history and the medication the patient is taking, Alexa would open up and say, hey, Todd, this is your medication. Did you take this specific medication? And this is the dose you should be taking on, etc. So Alexa is able to recognize, based on the patient's name, what medicine the patient is taking. And we do that by bringing in the data from the pharmacy systems into Alexa.
Yeah, fascinating. Now tell us, how does the skill work with compliance and MedAdherence? Very curious about what you guys have done with that, considering how Alexa communicates with patients or with the consumer.
Correct. Yeah. So Alexa is able to do a couple of things. One, now Alexa knows that this is Matt and this is the medication that Matt is taking. Alexa also has the dosage information. Alexa knows that Matt should be taking this medication every 6 hours. And so based on that, we, in the back end, we are able to send text messages and emails or even phone calls to the patient, reminding him or her that the medication is due at this time. So that is one thing that Alexa is able to do. The other that our skill is able to do using Alexa is to send refill requests. So if you want to send a refill request to the pharmaceutical company, to the pharmacy, we can. It is very much automated. Unlike the current situation where in some countries like Canada, it is a long drawn process where even if you do that on a computer, you have to key in so many names and codes and all that. But using our MedInfo platform, we know that Matt is taking this medication and he needs a refill.
Yeah. How do you guys connect that to me as the patient regarding the meds I'm taking, the schedule, the dosage, the refills? Are you connecting to another data table that's being managed somewhere else, or how would you guys set that up if you're able to talk about it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. But, we for this personalized information, we need to connect to the pharmacy database or the health insurance pro database if they have the source of data. But we definitely need to connect to a database which has got the patient information and the drugs that the patient is on. So
has that been a challenge?
We haven't connected yet, but my background also includes connecting with over 50 healthcare applications to an electronic medical record as part of a 700 million implementation of that electronic medical record. So from my experience, I don't think connecting that would be a big challenge.
Sure, and I appreciate you sharing that. I just wanted to get a better sense of sort of where you were at, and you're pretty far along, obviously. I've got another question for you.
Sure.
So I've been in the situation before, as I've mentioned on previous episodes of this podcast, I'm not in the healthcare industry. I just have received healthcare from time to time. And when I have, something that seems to happen, I'm a taller guy, I'm a bigger guy. And so, from a prescription standpoint, there's situations that will come up where I don't always need all of it. And I find myself talking to a doctor saying, do I really need to take the rest of this? Yes, you do. Or do I really need to take the rest of this and finish out the prescription? No, yeah, that's all right. It doesn't quite fit exactly with what you're talking about with medical adherence or, prescription adherence, because I've adhered to the prescription, but I still have questions. Is your platform, are you contemplating being able to have that sort of dialogue that would enable people to ask any sort of extra questions like that and connecting them with a doctor or helping them manage prescriptions even in the event that they have adhered to them?
Oh, absolutely. So up until now, when we developed the application, Alexa could not make a call directly to a pharmacy or any other phone number. So we used UMA, which is another VoIP phone service, which is on Alexa to make the call. But recently, Amazon came out with an option to call directly. So if this pharmacy has an Echo device, my Echo device can just call them directly and bypass UMA. So to answer your question, let's say you have a certain prescription with you, and after a week or so you have a bunch of questions, you just ask Alexa to connect you to the pharmacy. And then based on the information that we have on you, Alexa would know that this is your pharmacy, this is your primary care physician, etc. And then it'll connect you directly. And then
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears for a few minutes to the news of the week and talk about the launch of the Echo Show. So Amazon is coming out with the Echo Show this week. It is a combination of the Alexa voice assistant with a pretty large size screen, as well as a camera. And if you see the form factor, it looks like an alarm clock that would sit next to your bed on your nightstand or whatever, but it can go anywhere, obviously. And so, Saji, I want to ask you just for some general thoughts on how voice assistants have progressed to the point where we now have the Echo Show this week, and are you excited about it, or just sort of sitting on the fence waiting to see how adoption is?
Let me go back a little bit. I just saw the video of Echo Show, and it looks amazing. I need to do a little more deeper dive into that. But when I started off with your MedInfo, initially my thought was to work with a robotics company where I would have a combination of voice, also a graphical user interface like a screen and vision. So when I looked at what is out in the marketplace, I thought it made sense to go with Echo because they have already sold 5 million devices. And even though the graphical user interface and the vision was not there, I was hopeful that Amazon would come with something later on. So I'm really excited because these were the three things I was looking for. And I was going after a robotics company to get that going. But now that Echo Show is here, I'm just excited and I'm curious to see what all Echo Show can do for us.
It would work well for your platform, just from a layman's perspective, because or anybody trying to do something like what you're doing, because you've got the screen, and when you see the promotional pictures that Amazon's put out there of this thing, it's easy to imagine So I've got a prescription. Oh shoot, I forgot to take it yesterday. I was supposed to take it twice yesterday and I forgot. Now what? Should I take it, 3 times today, or should I take it 2 times, or should I take it none? Oh, well, you know what? Here's a Echo Show with the screen. Let me get my primary care doctor on the line, able to talk to me face to face over video chat, one-on-one. It's easy to imagine that sort of scenario. So I could see why you'd be excited about it. I know I am.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, to me, the Echo Show is like a non-intrusive robo at home, right? Because it has got a vision component, it has got a speech component, and it's also got a screen. And these were the things that you really need.
Well, it's also got a drop-in feature, so it can be quite intrusive.
That is there. But in terms of look and feel, right? You have a robo that is clunky and moving about and falling down, to something which just does the job, and it is there. And it doesn't look threatening, It doesn't look like I have a robo looking after me or taking care of me. It just looks like something on the nightstand, right? And by the patient, and to me, I think there's a lot of potential to explore this, and this actually fits in with the kind of things we were doing. So I talked about earlier about what we are looking to do in artificial intelligence, and Alexa and voice-based technologies is one. The second one we were looking at was image recognition, and the third is about voice analysis. So for using Echo Show, I think we can do some of these, and then depending on how the camera on Echo Show improves, and I'm sure it will over time, the functionality that can be brought in there from a healthcare perspective would be phenomenal.
It's a device that offers fantastic output, but it requires input to be useful. So how are you handling that issue, knowing you have to have a human interacting with it, regardless of a monitor, regardless of a microphone? What is it about what you're putting together, or even the challenge of getting past that very fact that you're addressing?
Right. You mean from the user experience standpoint? Is that your?
Well, you're developing a skill and you're developing a tool that humans and patients specifically need to interact with.
Right.
If Alexa Show and Alexa Echo are great at being output devices, right, this doesn't necessarily attract me as a consumer or a patient to give it input.
Correct. Yeah. So in terms of adoption, I think on a large scale, there are some challenges, especially around the cost of doing that. Right. So for it to get to a patient, the patient should spend about, for Echo Dot, $40. So when we talked to the health insurance company in Canada, that was their primary concern. So their point of view was, hey, let's say we are going to implement this for 1 million people, right? We're talking about 40 million in cost for the device. So it could be a different scenario once the adoption picks up. So already I think Echo Dot has sold about 6 to 8 million devices in the U.S. And we get to a point where we have 100 or 200 million devices. Then this should not be a problem. But the first challenge itself is about having the device itself. The second challenge in healthcare, like anything technology related in healthcare, is the security of it. But Amazon's policies are HIPAA compliant, so they meet the government regulations around health information, privacy, and security, and so that takes care of some of that. But for the patient, other than that, for the patient, I think this is pretty easy to interface. I remember growing up in an age where we were excited about seeing Microsoft Word and able to use the drag and drop features and click the buttons, right? So we grew up in that world. But what I'm also seeing is that there are some young adopters of Echo. So a couple of my friends' kids, 4 and 5 years old, are using Echo already.
My son would play with it all the time if I let him.
Yeah. So what will happen in the future, in my mind, is that language and speech is our natural interface, right? So we don't want to be typing, and we don't want to be playing with your smartphone. You would rather be talking to it, which is a natural thing to do. So I think that this makes it much more easy to attract that demographics, which will be just in my mind, this new generation will be just using voice. They won't be using any keyboards or anything in the future. But for the current generation, there's a huge set of people who are not really conversant with smartphones, right? If you look at the senior citizens, a lot of them are, they manage to use it, and we hear a lot of adoption of Facebook by seniors. But when it comes to something like this, they might be much more prone to use a voice-based technology than go, play around with the screens.
The challenge that I see is I've got to, as a practitioner, as someone who is desiring patients to interact with a device, I've got to get them to go to it, to speak. I've got to get them to go to it, to be interested in it. It's got to be more than just sending me as the patient information. We have to create a system in which the patient goes towards that tool with your particular cascade inside of Alexa on the back end. How are you doing that successfully?
Well, I think I would look at it in a different way. So when we look at it, the challenges around medication adherence, I think, is primarily among a certain demographic. Okay, so this is the issue is more among seniors, and then when you come to patients who are in nursing homes or other care facilities where they have long-term care needs and all that, many of them are not in a position to use smartphones. So for them, having a device like Alexa on the bedside, I think is very convenient, right? So I think that is a path of minimum resistance is how I see that. If you look at that population specifically.
So some people won't adhere to their medicine no matter what it is you try to do. But for people who are, what I hear you saying, Saji, is for people who are interested, Alexa and its various hardware form factors, the Echo, the Tap, the Dot, the Echo Show now present an opportunity to where people who are trying to adhere to it don't have as much of a hill to climb as they might with a smartphone.
Agree. Yeah, I think that's yeah. So it is one more tool in the arsenal. So Echo by itself does not solve the problem. It is and that is where we were talking about a multi-channel approach to medication adherence. And so we were building out, apart from the voice piece of it, we are also building out on the platform smartphone apps on both Android and iPhone.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also making it web compatible when it comes to some of the other users of the system who still use the web. So it is one very critical component in the whole set of things that we have at our disposal.
Well, we're going to wrap it up there. We greatly appreciate you, Saji, for joining us. Appreciate you sharing information about your MedInfo. If someone wants to reach out to you, Saji, about your MedInfo, what is the best way for them to do that?
www.yourmedinfo.com.
And they can contact you through the site?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Excellent.
So thank you very much. We appreciate you. And for the Voice of Healthcare, until next time.